Well, okay. Hello, everybody. This is the Moderator's meeting. For those of you who haven't been to one of these before, the purpose of this meeting is to assist me in understanding what issues might be coming before town meeting, to assist the presenters of articles, and give them an opportunity to ask questions about how it might unfold, and to try to iron out any procedural issues that might come up in front of town meeting, and do it now while there's a chance to fix it, rather than on the floor of town meeting when it's game over. So my name is Rich Bowen. I'm the town moderator, at least for another 5 or 6 weeks. Madam Town Clerk is to my left. Madam Town Administrator, he didn't even object to that, is to my right. And maybe what I'd like to do is maybe if we could just go around the room, starting with Madam Town Council, and just identify yourself so we know who we've got here.
Cindy Amara.
Speak up, Cindy. Oh, yeah. This meeting is being recorded. And the reason for that is that there are some issues on the warrant of a highly controversial nature that might result in legal proceedings at the conclusion of whatever town meeting decides to do. So we're going to have a nice, full record of everything that leads up to this town meeting, so that if things happen after town meeting, we're ready. Go ahead, Cindy.
Cindy Amara, Town Council.
Anthony Ponbianco. I'm here on Article 28, the proposed extension to the Hummerock Village Residential Overlay District.
Say hi to Adam for me, please.
Karen Canfield, Board of Selectmen.
I'm Jim Hunt, I'm an interested observer.
Chris Karsha, Capital Planning Committee.
Gary Myerson, Chairman of CPC.
John Van Key, I'm here for Article 30.
Joe DeVito, Director of Assessing.
Karen Joseph, Town Planner.
Kevin Cafferty, DPW Director. Brad Washburn, Planning and Development.
Laura Glancy, Scituate Recreation.
Fred Middleton, attorney for Mrs. Nielsen and Mr. McKeever.
Teresa Nielsen.
Hi, Teresa, my neighbor.
Nancy Gold, Finance Director.
We wouldn't be anywhere without Nancy. Did we catch everybody? No, the gentleman in the back.
South Point First Century Community Television.
Thanks for taking care of this for us, Seth. Okay, so, first thing, we're in the gymnasium again, I see. What kind of turnout are we expecting?
800 to 1,000, and it seats 1,250, give or take.
Will we need an overflow room?
I don't think so. I mean, I can have a small gym, but, I mean, for the schools and the police station, we didn't need an overflow room at all for the
Okay.
override. But that's not on this town meeting anyhow. It's for May 13th. But what do we have? We have Article 30, and we have the fields that will bring attention. So I think it's 800 to 1,000, Nancy. Don't you think?
Okay.
So I think we'll have plenty of room in the large gym. If we rethink it, the field project will be, yeah, but if the school and the public safety building override question didn't fill the gym to capacity back, I think we're good. We'll just smush them together if we're running 40 over, you know? Everybody share.
Once it's voted on, they'll all leave.
Well, does anyone in here disagree with Madam Clerk's opinion that the auditorium alone would be sufficient?
We can think about it too. I have a few
Okay.
days. And if we think that we might need some extra seating, maybe a couple hundred chairs in the small gym. The only thing is we don't have the setup for visual in the small gym. We only have audio.
Well, here's what I propose. Have the small gym on standby, along with some seats. If it looks like we're going to hit an overflow situation, what I'll do is I'll clear the non-voter section, and we'll move the non-voters to the satellite gym. And if we can get visual, that's great, but at least have audio so that they can hear what's going on. Because we want to make sure that every voter who wants to attend is able to. So I think that gives us probably a safety cushion of at
Right.
least 100,
Yeah.
maybe
we can do that.
200.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
to 200.
So let's start with the special town meeting, just because that's the easiest to get us rolling on. All right. Article 1, Budget Reconciliations. We've got a motion by John Danahy. I move that the town transfer from available funds in the Treasury $711,778 for the purpose of fully funding the following accounts established under articles and so forth, as written in the warrant. So John on the motion, Lincoln from advisory. Will anybody else be speaking to this?
No.
Okay. And quantum of vote, we don't have any odd stabilization things or anything like that?
Just
So
majority.
just majority. Great. Article 2, unpaid bills. It's a special town meeting, so it's 9/10. Yep, you've got that. I move that how about I move to transfer the sum of $3,999.14 for the purpose of paying a prior fiscal year unpaid bill, or bills. Is there more than one?
Couple, yeah. Three.
Okay. John Danahy, from the Board of Selectmen, Lincoln Heineman. Anything unusual about this?
Can I show you something?
Yeah.
On the next one, it says, I move that the town transfer. Should we just leave that and put in town?
Yeah, whatever,
Match that one? Okay.
whatever the people who are going to speak it are comfortable with. Retirement of debt, I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $283,000 to retire the debt listed in the warrant. Let's just look on the warrant. Nancy, no reuse of funds, nothing jazzy, just a simple paying off of debt?
Yes, not to leave it to Article 3 and leave it to Jasmine.
Okay. So quantum of vote, majority. Mr. Danahy, Mr. Heineman, anybody else? No, okay. And that's it for the special. That should take 5 minutes. So then we have the consent agenda. For those of you who don't know what a consent agenda is, it's just an opportunity to take up routine articles in a group, things that seldom, if ever, require discussion, and vote them as a group. What I'll do, and I think I've done this in the past, is I'll just say, here are the consent items. I'll read off the numbers of the articles that will be included. If anybody wants to hold one and talk about it, I'll give them that chance, and then we'll vote everything that wasn't held. So the motion is, I move that the town vote to take Articles 1, 2, 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17, 19, and 20 out of order, and that they be passed by consent in accordance with the motion shown on the consent agenda distributed this evening. You're going to have a lot of those printed.
1,000, 1,200 more printed ready to go.
Okay. And then you have written here, 2/3 vote required, single exception will remove article from consent agenda. That's correct. Let's just take a quick look at what these articles are, just so we know what we've got. Reports of boards and committees, that's Article 2. Oh, pardon me, I skipped over Article 1. Article 1, compensation of elected officials. Anybody getting a big raise?
What?
No,
What?
Kathy is getting a raise, but I wouldn't characterize it as a big raise.
Okay, I'm
Thank-
sorry,
thank
Kathy, I didn't
you.
mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay, Mr. Moderator.
Co-
Thank you.
Cost of living increase.
This
Cost of
is
living adjustment,
true.
that's right.
Yeah, oh, adjustment,
Thank you.
I got to get the
Thank
jargon down here.
All right.
Okay. So 2 reports. 6,
Golf Enterprise.
okay. I seem to remember people asking questions about that, but we'll see.
I think Article 8 needs to say consent agenda next to it, I'll fix that.
Yeah.
Okay, 6,
8 is Transfer Station Enterprise.
yep.
Okay.
10 is,
Stabilization Excess Levy Article.
okay. 11,
Revolving Fund Limits.
I hated the way they made us change the law and turn that into a bylaw rather than just vote it, but,
Yeah, it's silly.
oh well. 13,
Community Preservation Reconciliations.
let's see. And that's just to clean up unexpended balances.
I'll close out articles that haven't been acted on for 3 years, Gary, generally.
Sorry, say that again?
Reconciliations, nothing's happened for 3 years, you generally,
Unless the project is finished or
yeah,
they...
so it's either cleanups or,
So we're just sweeping up.
You just clean it up.
Okay. 14,
14 is Chapter 91.
yeah, Joe used to get
Liability.
this, Joe Norton got this one every year for about 20 years. Should have been called the Joe Norton article.
15, 16, and 17 are the property tax relief that we talked about at the fall town meeting.
Yeah, for the senior citizens?
Senior citizens, yeah.
Yeah, who's going to vote against that? Well, you never know. 19,
19 and 20 are, 19 is the transfer station stabilization fund to establish that, and 20 is to establish a waterways enterprise stabilization fund.
okay,
That's it.
and that's it. All right. And that'll put a pretty good dent in things. So let's move backwards. Article 3, Capital Improvement Plan. We have John Danahy. We don't know who from the advisory board yet.
Elise Russo, sorry. I
Oh,
didn't
Elise?
write it in red, I probably put it at the
Okay.
end. Yeah, Elise Russo, sorry.
Chris Kosh will probably speak on that too, won't you, Chris? You don't have to.
All of a sudden, a short presentation turned into a one-hour epic.
I got a 30-minute dissertation on capital planning and money.
We'll get him in now.
Just remember, at the 5-minute mark, when you see the police officers walking down the aisle in your direction,
Oh, I can run.
With their tasers on.
Tasers, yes.
That's just for you.
Perfect.
we got anybody else who's going to speak on it?
Not that I'm aware of.
You want to generally, for capital, you just want a general, hi, how you doing, this is capital, right?
Yeah, well, let's back up. What sort of presentation does John have?
He's just gonna go over it again on a very high level. He'll hit some of the big things on there, but he won't be more than 2-3 minutes, max.
That'll be a first.
Tell him to
And tell him I said so.
read what's written down and step aside. So,
Tell him I've been working on my throwing with the
So we're
gavel.
not going to line item the capital items.
not gonna what?
We're not going to go through the capital items.
Oh, hold on.
We're getting there.
Yeah, you're getting there, you're getting there.
It'll be very brief.
And then Elise will make a presentation from advisory, and then, Chris, what are you going to do? Just talk about the process and
Just a quick,
hit the emphasis points?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And then, what it might be worth doing, and I hate to put you to this trouble, but maybe we should have 2 or 3 seats set up somewhere convenient in the vicinity of the podium so that, for example, if you return to your seat,
Oh, a couple of extra.
you're not having to play a yo-yo.
Maybe
Put 'em-
down
we
in
just
front
put
of
them
you.
behind it, we put them
Yeah,
behind the slide.
yeah.
They're just there if they need them.
Yeah, just
Step
some
back
extra
and sit
chairs.
down.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that. So
Yeah, mine.
there's majority votes and 2/3 votes in the capital
Yeah.
plan. I think last year, Nancy, didn't we break it down and give them all the majority votes and all the 2/3 votes, so we get them as two separate?
Yeah.
So we'll do that again.
I think what I'll do with this, John's going to have to read each of these motions
Right.
individually. So he'll be tuckered out by the time he reads all this. And there's just no
No way around it.
way around it. It just has to be done. Bond council's going to want to see it. Okay, so John will make the motion. He'll read the 3-4 pages of fine print. And then, so we'll get the motion, we'll get the second. John, Elise, then Chris will make a presentation. Then I think what I'll do is I'll ask for holds. I'll just go A, B, C, and so forth, in case people want to hear more about any particular article. Anything that isn't held, we'll vote, and I'll call for a vote at the highest quantum of vote necessary to pass everything on the table, because I assume if nobody holds it, it's probably going to be pretty close to a unanimous vote anyway. So I'll just say, so voted and declared a unanimous vote or 2/3 vote or whatever. And then we'll return back to the held ones, and John and Chris, Jim, I guess you might be on deck for that too. Yeah, how does that sound?
And then take that up by whatever vote quantum is on that
Yeah,
particular item.
yeah, I'll just,
Okay, the only other thing, we talked about the search on item D in the capital is the athletic field renovation project.
oh yeah,
The second portion, okay.
yeah, hold that thought for just a second, because that one will be held.
Yeah. And there'll definitely be a presentation on that by Mark Novak.
Well, then maybe what we should do on that is have the proponent hold that one.
I can have one of the board members hold it too.
Yeah, just have a board member hold it, so that we can then circle back to that one in particular, trot out the presentation, and have a full discussion on that one. Well, okay, we'll just dive right into this one then. So, this has two parts, D, and then what's the other article number?
12.
Article 12. So here's a question, and I'm willing to do whatever people want to do with this, obviously. We could vote these separately, vote Article 2, is this 2? 3D. I'm not prejudging anything, but let's just say it failed, because I think failing would be the more complicated scenario in terms of how to deal with Article 12. And then we get to Article 12, and then you're going to be faced with all kinds of questions about, should we go forward with this with just this much funding? And I could see a fairly lengthy, possibly repetitive discussion. Does it make sense when we circle back to the held 3D to entertain a motion to advance consideration of Article 12 to be taken up at the same time as 3D?
Or at least that portion of Article 12.
Yeah, all right, let's just look at Article 12.
It's still going to be two separate votes, but that way you only have one debate on it.
Yeah,
So it'll be Article 12, number 11. Take that out of order.
If you do that, I would, you gotta let the town know, because some people might be showing up just for Article 12.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
oh, absolutely.
It can work.
Well, that's the great thing about the fact that this is being televised. Now they'll know that
We'll put it on.
that this is, look, I won't make the motion, I don't make motions, but as I was thinking about this, it seemed to me that someone might, and if people were going to breeze in, an hour or two late expecting that they're going to act on Article 12, at 9 o'clock, you know, good luck. You might be out of it. So we will wait and see if somebody makes a motion.
I would probably put that to my board, because I think that way it's going to be one discussion as opposed to a long discussion on Article 3, and then have basically the same discussion again
Yeah.
on Article 12.
Yeah, I just see that happening. And the second discussion will be a lot testier than the first one. So the motion, if it were made, would be something like this. I move to advance consideration of Article 12, subsection 11, to be taken up at the same time as Article 3, subsection D. And then I suppose we would entertain a fairly brief discussion on the advisability of doing that, and then take a vote. I'll have to review the bylaw in town meeting time, but I think advancing consideration of an article is a 2/3 vote. But I'll double check that. That's my issue.
There'd be one vote or two.
To advance consideration.
No.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
2/7 would be a vote on, 3D would be a vote,
Yeah.
12/11 would be a vote, so it'd be two votes.
Different quantums of vote required.
Well-
No, they're both 2/3. So they're both borrowings, right. They
Yeah.
both involve borrowings, so they're both 2/3. But it would be, not to step on your toe,
No, I think
bond council would have to be two separate votes.
bond council would want to see two separate votes. This is really just for purposes of, if this is what people want to do, giving the project a full airing all at once. It would probably be more productive and less potentially confusing. But that's up to the voters. The voters could say, nope. When that motion, if and when that motion were made, the voters could vote against it. Nope, we want two separate discussions, and that's fine. Like the comedian, we'll be there all night. Okay, so was there anything else to be said on the capital plan? Is there anything else in there that is going to be lively?
Possibly the new treatment well 17A construction, which is U.
Oh, yeah.
Could be, and R, the water treatment plant. Those are just both big ticket items that could draw some discussion.
Yeah, well, people, I suppose, the discussion will be, our water is brown, will this help it?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be long, lengthy discussions, but I could see questions on those because of the size and the impact.
Yeah, so John, who'll be making the presentation? John?
John, yeah,
Okay,
and the water department will be available to answer any questions.
yeah, you might want to get them in one of the
Yep.
hot seats up
Yeah,
in the
Kevin-
front.
Kevin usually sits up the front, so does Sean. so-
Oh, lucky Kevin. Wear the shirt with the bullseye on it so they know who you are.
Kevin, we're not planning on having the engineer there, are we?
I wasn't planning on it.
I don't think it's gonna get that detailed, and most of the questions that people ask, I think we can answer.
Yeah,
I don't think the engineer would lend anything to that.
yeah.
Biggest question will be green sand filter of the residents that the building is forming a well in their neighborhood.
Yeah, and then you're going to get the more general questions about, have we got enough water? Will this give us more water? Will this make the brown water go away? Will this improve things? And, that's pretty much what people want to know about and understand, so. And I think those questions are relevant to these proposed expenditures, so I'm going to give people latitude to ask those questions.
We'll be ready.
Okay. So then, anything else you think will be? So in Article 4, the annual operating budget, we have John from Advisory, Lincoln.
Yep.
Are you going to,
Just answer questions.
Now, it's usually around the budget article that we get some kind of State of the Union speech. I assume John will want to do that.
Yep,
Okay.
that'll be short also.
I think we should get the pool going right now.
I'm working on it.
Okay, State of Union. John. I'm going to put Lincoln down. Chris, you going to get in on the party? You're good.
Article 3, it's all there.
Yeah, I think that'd be it. Lincoln and,
That's my Marine.
Lincoln and John.
Okay. So what I'll do is I usually do, once the motion's on the floor, once the State of the Union's been delivered, I'll call for holds, and what I'll do, I used to do every single number, but I think for the last 5 or 6 years, I've just been calling the general departmental number and asking for holds there. So I would call, for example, Board of Selectmen 123, Advisory Committee 131, and so on. So if somebody wants to discuss a subsection thereof, we'll hold it and circle back. If they don't, that's fine. We'll vote everything that wasn't held, and then circle back and discuss everything that was held. Anything unusual in there?
No.
Okay. Article 5, Waterways Enterprise Fund. Okay, not a consent. So we have Sean from the Board of Selectmen, Elise from Advisory, and Jim, if at any point you think that there's going to be something lively about one of these, just let me know and we'll address it. And by the way, if any of you have anything to say about any of these and anything that you think might come up, just, sing out. We're trying to work these things out now, so I don't know. Okay, golf course, that's consent agenda. It's Article 6.
Yep.
The wastewater enterprise fund, that's Sean. I move that the town transfer from available funds the receipts. My friend Anthony from Advisory. One will vote majority. Article 8 is on the consent agenda, isn't it?
It is, and it's not written down.
All right, we'll just put consent there. Article 9, Water Enterprise Fund.
Waterways.
Oh, it should say waterways.
Waterways, yeah.
Okay.
No, it's water.
That's water, water.
Was it 5 waterways?
They
Yes.
both say water.
Yeah, this is water.
This is water.
Just to see if I was paying attention.
Sorry.
Well,
Hey,
hey,
do
Good
that.
job, Nancy.
I move that the town transfer from available funds in the Water Enterprise Fund receipts the sum of $4.8 million for the purpose of funding the enterprise fund for the ensuing fiscal year, as follows. Okay. Sean from the Selectmen, Patrice from Advisory, quantum will vote majority. Then 10, consent agenda. 11, consent agenda. 12, community preservation. So, Board of Selectmen, we have Tony.
Yep.
Advisory, Mike. And I see a reluctant speaker.
Not me.
You're not going to speak?
I'm not going to do it. Most of the, like the health of the CPC was built into the field project, so there's no sense duplicating and wasting everyone's time.
Okay. I think Tony will, are these all printed out in the warrant?
Yes.
So in terms of the actual motion, is Tony going to read all lists, or is it going to be
That's what's,
read the allocation of the,
I think it's planned, he's going to read each one.
okay, that's fine. However you want to
Yes.
do it is okay. So Tony will read each one, with the possible exception of subsection 11, if we've already addressed that. I guess what I'll do on this is I'll just call for holds. I'll read off each of the numbers, say, is there a hold on 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So that way we can focus our attention on the things that people are really interested in.
Gary, there wasn't a lot of controversy in any of these except for the field one, right? That's the only one
Yeah,
a lot
1
of
through
debate.
10 are standard.
So
I don't see anything.
I don't anticipate
Okay.
a lot on those.
Yeah.
And if you look at all the same historic projects we have every year,
Yeah,
you know, affordable housing is just a refund of, it's a little stuff.
yeah, I mean, it's almost bookkeeping at this point, but no offense, Nancy. All right. 13 consent agenda, 14 consent agenda, 15 consent agenda, 16 consent agenda, 17 consent agenda, 18, adoption of room occupancy tax. Is this the Airbnb
It's part of it, yes.
part of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I move that the town accept sections 51 and 52 of Chapter 27 of the Acts of 2009 amending. Fascinating. Majority vote. And Karen, that's you. Patrice has got it from advisory. Okay, great. Article 19, consent agenda. Article 20, consent agenda. Yeah. Article 21, acceptance of public way, Blanchard Farms Lane. So I see that you have it down as a 2/3 quantum of vote, so I take it then this isn't part of an approved subdivision plan.
That's what that was my question, and also because they're doing eminent domain.
Okay.
We take the fee in the road.
Well, it says you're going to accept and take for eminent domain the easements.
Right, so we
and
take the
that's
road.
2/3, and also, I couldn't tell from this if it was on a plan or not, it was not on a plan. It's 2/3.
Yeah, I agree. This way it's safe.
Do you know if it's on a plan? If so, you can put it in.
It is, it's an approved
It's
subdivision.
an approved subdivision plan.
All right. Well, let's keep that in the back of our minds, because here's the thing. Actually accepting the Board of Selectmen's layout, if it's on an approved subdivision plan, requires only a majority vote. And so the thing that could kick it up to a higher quantum of vote is this eminent domain part. Now, it's possible to accept a layout without actually accepting easement or fee in the roadway. There's a concept of implied easement. So why am I telling you all this? If you don't get 2/3, but you think you might get a majority vote, there's still a chance for you to get your street layout accepted. Do you follow what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I mean, it's all done in accordance with the subdivision rules and regulations, and then the town, there was an as-built, there's a street layout plan, and basically the town just is gonna plow. Homeowners Association is gonna maintain everything else.
Tell you what, we'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
I don't really anticipate there being any
Yeah,
opposition.
you think it'll be
I think it's
straightforward?
gonna be straightforward, yeah.
Okay, good. Just, when we're done, just 2 minutes. So, Karen, that's you. Advisory, Anthony. And then I assume some folks from the way might want to speak, but I guess you can just line up and identify your address, and then perhaps just say, we're on the street, and here's why we think it's a good idea. Okay. Article 22, zoning bylaw amendment, flexible open space development. So that's Karen, Jerry Kelly, 2/3 vote. I'll need the planning board report.
And where can I do that?
Rebecca Lewis.
Okay. So I'll call for Rebecca, or Rebecca should be ready just to step up and say, I have the report of the planning board. We held a hearing on date X, and by a vote of A to B, we recommended X. And then we'll hand that report to Madam Clerk, and that's all done. Is there anything jazzy about this one?
No, this one's pretty basic.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. Article 23, another zoning bylaw, Greenbush Driftway zoning amendments. Board of Selectmen, it's Karen. From Advisory, it's Lincoln. Quantum of vote 2/3. Who'll be giving the planning board report on that?
And Irvine.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, ma'am.
So will the order be, I make a motion and then the planning board makes their presentation?
That works. You know, if you simply want to give the motion and don't want to do the explanation, I mean, because it's really a planning thing rather than a Board of Selectmen thing, you could say, okay, you know, the motion is blah, 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 I'll call for the second. And then when I say discussion, normally I would go to the proponent or the Board of Selectmen first, so I would look to you and I would say, Selectman Canfield. And you would say, for the presentation part of this, I'll defer to Ms. Burbine of the Planning Board to offer an explanation as to the purpose of this article. If you want to.
Report on what the board,
Yeah.
I'll coordinate with Dan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then Lincoln would go,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because I remember from my selectman days, you've got all these planning folks, and yeah, I get it. Okay, general bylaw. Oh, was there anything else on Article 23? Yes, sir.
I guess Mr. Moderator and Jim, I want to ask you, I mean, do we want a short presentation by the consultant on this one, or are we just going with it? I mean, Ann is going to present on it, she'll read the report from the planning board and give a kind of a short speech, but I didn't know if we wanted a short PowerPoint or not. Either way is fine with me.
I would have one ready, but see how town meeting's going. Town meeting does not seem to be amenable to presentations, and they want to vote, we'll move on. If town meeting wants an explanation, let's have one ready.
Yeah.
There is a screen, a small screen. Mr. Richter's providing a small drop-down screen, but you have to bring your own laptop and PowerPoint
Is that the one
things.
they use for the drone video?
Yeah, I think it's the small one that they had behind the selectmen.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you guys need easels, but just let me know if you have any of the maps, if you want to present the maps or show the maps anywhere in the foyer or anywhere.
Yeah.
I can have a couple of easels, okay?
I just play it by ear. I mean, I'm not here, but I've had town meetings where they don't want presentations, they just want to vote and move on, so have it
Yeah.
ready, and if
Yeah, I agree with that.
we need it, if not, we'll just move on.
It's good to be ready, because then you know it won't happen. So are we all set on 23? Okay, Article 24, General Bylaw Amendment, Town Meetings. Oh, this is the one where we're getting rid of publishing it in the
In the
newspaper.
Yeah.
And what's that costing a year?
6,000 and up, depending on how big it is and which newspaper we put it in.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I guess Gordon Price was Man of the Year this year. I don't think you're in the running for next year after that.
That's fine.
6,000, yeah.
But yeah, that's for one paper.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I mean, this is a fairly common amendment I'm seeing out there, and other towns.
6,000 is the least, and then it's in the ledger, it's at least double that.
I could say something. All right, Mara from the Board of Selectmen, Patrice from Advisory. Okay. Article 25. So let's see. 2/3 vote. Mara Curran from the Board of Selectmen, Mike Westort from Advisory. Let me just read this out loud. I move, let's throw a that in there. I move
Here's the newest one. So
that, oh, okay, something new.
it's just a little more detailed.
Okay. What's the new detail? Just map references?
Yeah.
All right.
Just to be more specific as to exactly what the properties are.
So, just throw a that in right there. I move that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to transfer from the Board of Selectmen to the Conservation Commission for conservation purposes. Okay. The care, custody, and control of, and grant to Wildlands Trust, Inc., or other qualified conservation trust, a conservation restriction pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 184, Section 31 through 33. And I'm just going to suggest you add, or any other applicable law.
Just to cover us.
Yeah. Complying with Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution in perpetuity, the following parcels of land. 3 parcels on Clapp Road identified on Town of Scituate GIS Viewer Assessor's Maps as, is that O or 0?
Zero
I think
clap.
it's 0.
Okay.
Zero. Yep.
0 Clapp Road, parcel ID 25-5-3A, recorded in the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, Book 5266, page 496. I'll omit the rest of the references. A copy of which is available at the town clerk's office and the library and town website. So you've got this in your office, Kath?
Do I have this, you guys?
You should. If you don't, I'll make sure you have it.
Yeah, just double check. Okay, so let's get that in there.
The street.
We'll have a slide for these also, so people can see them.
Okay. Let's see, then an approximate 7.13 acre parcel identified, an approximate 9.380 parcel identified, a portion of a parcel identified on the assessor's map 23-1-6, excluding approximately 6.6 acres as shown. So on that one, is that the public safety building?
No, that's another piece on Clap.
Okay, so that's a reference by subtracting something shown on another map.
Right.
Which article are you reading?
25.
25.
Which?
D.
That's what I thought, D.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not
A copy of which is available at the town clerk's office, the library, and the town website.
If you have one, you have them all. If you don't have one,
I don't have any other.
they're all on my desk, so.
Okay, so, yeah, and I'd just check with the library and the IT director to authorize the Board of Selectmen to simultaneously petition the legislature to enact special legislation to authorize the use of 7.11 acres of the Ellis Estate land known as the Public Safety Complex for general municipal purposes without any restrictions imposed on such use by Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution or other applicable law. Just cover any wills and estates issues. contingent upon the effective transfers and conservation restrictions on the land described in A through D above, which will ensure the land described in A through D above will be subject to the protections of Article 97 of the amendments to the Mass Constitution, and to transfer from free cash the sum of dollars to be determined for such purposes. Okay. Yep. So we just need to get the bucks in it.
Yeah, we met with the Wildlands Trust, and they're interested in taking the restrictions on all the properties.
How much do they want to get paid?
They haven't got back to us on that. So if they don't get back to us in time for this, then we'll go through all the paperwork, and then the money will be done at the special town meeting in the fall. But they need to do some of their homework. They said they would get us a number by town meeting, but they have not as of yet.
So say that again, if they don't get back to you?
So we'll go through the whole process, and then we'll have to appropriate the money in the fall, depending on how much it is, Jim. But they said they'd get back to us by town meeting, and they have not yet.
Does that still legitimize the action of the article?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, this is just the authorization, would have to pay them before we could
So
actually
it would be
execute.
worded a sum to be approved at a subsequent.
you could, you know, that's probably a good reassurance thing, just so people know what's going to be
Yep.
in the pipipeline. But
So
in
either some definite or some to be appropriated later.
you know, and the other possibility is if the advisory board has money left over, you could always,
Yeah, depending upon how much it is, if it's $10,000 to $15,000, I could technically take it out of my legal budget and do it.
Why
If
don't
it's $100,000, that gets a little,
why don't you kick 10 grand into it, just to, they're probably going to want more than 10,000 bucks, but just kick 10 grand into it, and then if it's less than that, we can sweep it out, or
I'll use it and add to it later.
sweep it out later, yeah. So at least there's money in there.
Okay, well, just
I mean, yeah, it's up to you.
transfer from free cash.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's a 2/3 vote.
So just from a process standpoint, Mr. Moderator, 24, 25, 26, 27 are all the same topic.
Same subject matter.
So I would probably propose that when Mara speaks to the article, she's speaking to all three.
Good
And
plan.
then take them as separate motions.
Yes. And they're all 2/3 votes. Yeah, I like that idea. Because the substance of the other articles, there's nothing really different.
Just codifying that those other two pieces are going to go where they're supposed to be going. And
Does
then
this
there'll
have
be
to be added
restrictions
to
on
the
it.
other two pieces? This
Hmm?
language here have to be added to this one after Massachusetts Constitution or other?
Yeah, we'll add
I
that to
would,
all of them?
yeah. Well, let's jump down to these other ones.
Huh?
I'm just trying to think if they really want or other applicable law, because I don't know what else would apply, and I'm only worried about the Article 97. That's my only question.
Well,
Right, but I think the
Don't you fall.
the premise would be, if we're missing a statute that
That's-
would apply, rather than have to come back to town meeting and do it again, we would be automatically covered.
yeah, or for example, let's suppose that an heir popped out of the woodwork and was relying on some inheritance statute. You know, at least this heads off possibilities.
Okay.
You know, Cindy, you're,
I was thinking more, I wasn't thinking down that road. I
Yeah.
was thinking more something that we wouldn't necessarily want to commit to that was out there that I can't think of.
yeah,
So that was my only question.
yeah, I'm more thinking of just trying to get it so that when we vote it, we'll never have to vote it
We
again.
have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, and it's settled for all time. But look, you're town council and I'm just the short timer.
I can't think of anything specifically that worries me, and I haven't thought of areas that might need to get included, so I don't feel strongly enough about it.
Well, see, as you get old, you start to think about things like wills and where are they going to plant me?
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
we'll add it, and in the meantime, Cindy,
If I think of anything, I'll let
we
you
can
know.
always just.
I mean, look, and
cross it off
if in your legal judgment you think it's not appropriate, really, it's your article.
Right. But as I said, what we'll do is we'll add it to the motion, and if Cindy comes back and says no, we just
Yeah.
cross it off and they don't read it.
Yeah. I'm just here to help.
Thank you.
So, Article 26, that's Mara Curran.
Yeah.
Jamie Gilmore comes off the bench. 2/3 vote. Let's just take a look at it. And I'll omit the comments I made on the previous one and just assume that they're going to be done. I move that the town transfer from the Board of Selectmen to the Conservation Commission the care, custody, and control of approximately 13 acres, more or less known as the school committee land, and shown on a plan by the Scituate Public Works Department entitled Proposed Ellis Property Conservation Commission Restriction, dated April 9, 2018, a copy of which is available at the town clerk's office. And that'll be addressed. The library and the town website, and those will be addressed for conservation purposes, and grant to the Wildlands Trust, Inc., or other qualified conservation trust a conservation restriction complying with Article 97, and so forth, in perpetuity. Okay. Anything? Yes, sir.
This is a cleanup article, obviously from the October 2015 vote, but there are no meets and bounds on that parcel, is that correct? It has no parcel identification
It's just shown on the plan.
on the plan.
Yeah.
But it's a sketch plan, it's not
Yeah.
an engineered plan.
With meets and bounds, no.
Yeah. So in the odd circumstance that this fails and the next one passes, how do you separate one from the other? Or
I mean, it's sufficient for this purpose. Whether it's sufficient then for the Wildlands Trust
right?
would be another question. Then we probably would have to go at least do the boundary between those two parcels.
Jim, have you got the plans handy, or are they?
I got a small one.
Yeah, can you grab it?
I'm concerned that the property has never been documented, surveyed meets and bounds.
It's a fair concern.
This transfer also excludes the Arts Association property, which also has never been properly surveyed with meets and bounds.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Wildlands Trust is going to buy that.
Well, let's suppose these pass. We would end up, if Wildlands Trust wouldn't accept the restriction, then we'd be shopping around for another holder. And then if we couldn't find any holder based on what we voted in the plans, then we'd probably be spending some money surveying and re-voting this. Cindy?
I just was thinking along that lines, and just made me think of this. If we are passing these, and we're also, we would have the authority to do what Wildlands Trust needed, and if that meant we had to do survey, we would have transferred free cash money to accomplish the purposes. So I think we would have enough in the articles and the motions to do whatever we need to do without having to come back to town meeting. That's just my view.
Yeah, if we have to do the survey, we do the survey.
Might be worth talking to our state, ask our state rep, or whoever or you'll probably take it to the Senate first, won't you?
Usually goes to the Senate.
Yeah. Why don't you have our senator speak to Senate Council about the level of specificity they'll need in the plan.
Okay.
Because actually that's where this kind of thing can founder. Because I've run into a few times where Senate Council will be very...
Yeah, the specificity for town meeting is sufficient, but whether it's sufficient for the next two
Yeah,
steps is...
yeah.
I'm really concerned about questions from the floor about the Arts Association property, because it's still town property, it was never conveyed. It's used by the Arts Association.
You're jumping ahead, that's the next one.
Well, I'm kind of lumping them
No,
together.
that's okay, Jim.
Because those folks have done really tremendous things with that property and the building. Now, do they feel threatened by this because the property's not well-defined and the language of the the article excludes that property from the action.
Right, but two issues for that, Mr. Hunt. One, we do exclude it, which should take care of them. Even if they were not excluded, the conservation restriction could make allowances for that, so that use could still continue. So in any event, the Arts Association will be taken care of.
And if that can be made if that can be made clear, that's simply on the floor, and the questions or concerns can be satisfied, that's simply, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
But something tells me that it could degenerate into what's happening to us kind of thing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I certainly understand people
We've
being,
heard that before.
The answer is nothing.
No.
So, and we actually had that discussion with the Attorney General's office. You can handle it in either way, either carve it out, which is what we're proposing, but if you don't carve it out, the conservation restriction can make allowances for that use at that location.
And that'll probably be the best thing to do.
Actually, the AG said it's 6 and 1, half dozen another. It's easy.
in that case, I'd do whichever of the options gives people the greatest level of confidence with what's being
I'm just
done.
trying to avoid a tangential discussion which could take the thing down a dangerous path.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll just express a non-moderator personal preference, if I can do that, which is whatever it takes to give people the greatest level of comfort with what's being done, that's what we should be doing. So, there, I've given a personal opinion.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for helping us. Okay, so that takes us to Article 27. I move that the town grant to the Wildlands Trust or other qualified conservation, I'm reading off the wrong one, sorry. I move that the town grant to the Wildlands Trust, Inc., or other qualified conservation trust, a conservation restriction pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 184, Section 31 through 33, complying with Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution, in perpetuity on approximately 70 acres of the Ellis Estate land currently under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission, situated easterly of Chief Justice Cushing Highway and northerly of Manlot Road, being shown as parcel 12-3-1 on the Town of Scituate's assessor's maps, and also depicted as Lot 1 on a plan of land recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 15, page 191, excluding the land and building transferred to the Scituate Arts Association, Inc., containing approximately 3.8 acres, and shown on a plan by the Scituate Public Works Department entitled Proposed Ellis Property Conservation Commission Restriction, dated April 9, 2018, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the legislature to enact special legislation to subject said approximately 70 acres to the protections of Article 97 of the amendments to the Mass Constitution, and to transfer from free cash the sum of dollars to be determined for such purposes. Okay. Board of Selectmen, Maura Curran. Advisory, Jamie Gilmore. Quorum of votes, 2/3. What do we want to say about this? Madam Town Council.
I actually added the language, and now I have a question based on something that's here. In the article from last year, we had the phrase transferred to the Scituate Art Association, and then now I'm hearing that it was not transferred, so was that actually transferred or not?
Well, nothing
Or
was,
should we just say used by?
nothing was done last year. I don't think they own it. I think the town still owns it.
So should we just take
So,
out the word transfer?
Yeah, we don't want to,
Used
Yeah,
by?
it's a use
transfer them.
issue.
We just want to leave for the use of.
Okay.
Again, just a concern, that language that you read is substantially different from the language in the warrant and in the advisory committee booklet.
Well, let's have a look.
I do not want confusion. I mean, that's what I want, but I don't think the people want.
Yeah, the language in the motion is just more specific, Jim, and that was based upon,
But people will be following along, and they go, whoa, 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 where's this going? That happens a lot before.
Here's what I'd like to have happen. Would it be possible to have the 3 Ellis Estate articles, motions, I should say, printed out as a handout and ready to distribute so that there will be no such confusion?
Good, thank you.
Okay. So we have Mara Curran, Jamie Gilmore. Anyone else going to be talking about it?
Not
Jump
presentation.
right up if you're, Cindy, if you want to jump up? No?
No, I think I will say as little as possible.
Yeah, we'll just be ready to answer questions.
Okay, great. All right. And again, it's your article, it's your motion. I only offer suggestions. It might be worth printing this on the backside of whatever piece of paper is going to have the motions. Okay, so, Article, what are we, 28?
It's a petition article.
Petition, amendment zoning map to extend Humrock Village Residential Overlay Zoning District. Well, you're on.
Thank you. Do you want a little history here?
Sure.
The proposal, as written there, is to extend the Humrock, the Village Residential Overlay District for one parcel. The parcel is 72-19-5.
Is that the one on the other side of the bridge?
Yeah.
The guy's got the...
boat down on it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know the one, yeah.
And originally in 2008, when the town proposed the overlay district, this parcel was included.
Yeah.
And the owner at the time had requested that it be removed for certain considerations of the business at the time. And now we're requesting that it be put back into, as originally planned, into the Humrock Village Residential Overlay District for the best use and purposes of the property.
So it's just a proposed district boundary expansion,
Correct.
which removes questions, and Madam Town Council, correct me if I'm wrong, that removes questions of spot zoning, because it's just a boundary expansion. I don't know. Anybody have any questions from?
Who's going to move it?
Yeah, all right.
I assume similar to Article 23, have us be ready to present and
Well,
announce it.
on petitioned articles, usually the petitioner is the one who actually gets up and makes the motion. Now, since you're a town resident, you don't need any special recognition other than, hey, so you can just come up and make the motion.
We'll have it for you. I'll just have my book and read it out.
Yeah, but is there anything else that you want besides
Should he bring his
that in
map?
advance? Do you want any,
You
do you
might-
want to hand out any of the?
You just might want to make the map available at the...
I'd have it in the lobby on an easel
Just have that in the lobby.
with the heading, Article 28.
Okay.
Because, what the people are going to wonder about is it's, the first thing you'll hear will be, is it spot zoning? It's only one parcel. Well, yeah, it's only one parcel, but it's just a boundary change. Whether it's a good or a bad idea, I don't know, but,
Is it the River House parcel?
No, no.
It's the boathouse.
It's about-
Oh,
You go over the bridge, the boathouse on the left.
slow down.
That's it.
That should be enough to satisfy most people,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The people who care about it would know where it is.
Yeah,
You say it's a boathouse, and they'll know where it is.
yeah. Okay.
That's easy.
So, well, not necessarily you, but,
It'll be either Adam or I.
Yeah.
We're both residents, so.
yeah, I know, that's handy. Well, and I know Adam mentioned that he had I think a hearing. I don't imagine this coming up till,
Later.
yeah, very late in the evening. So,
around Thursday night.
yeah.
I assume you're present for it, so just in.
Well, Kathy says she has the gym booked for 2 nights, so.
I'm going to get that taser.
Push through.
Oh, man.
Just saying.
No, see me, I'm happy to push right through till
I'm going to bring my
till
egg
dawn, but,
the egg timer and the taser.
see, well, it's whatever people want to do. So the petitioner will make the motion, there'll be a second. It says here that John Danahy will speak from the Board of Selectmen, Jerry Kelly will speak from advisory. We will need a planning board report. Okay. Oh, Ben. My next door neighbor.
Ben speaking to 28? No, which one?
28.
Okay.
Nice guy. Went to school with his mother and his uncles.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
You didn't go to school with his mother.
Well,
I went to school with
we were in the school system at the same time, like, okay. One of the brothers, definitely.
Yes.
Back when the wooden desks were nailed to the floor, remember?
The days of duck and cover. So 2/3 vote. All right, Article 29, petition, termination of lease with Go Green Supply, Inc. Who's our petitioner? Teresa. So you're going to get up and make the motion on this?
My lawyer will talk first.
Oh, no, he won't. Oh, no, he won't. Somebody has to make a motion first.
I make a motion that we remove the Go Green operation on the Driftway.
So, Jim, why don't you give Teresa a copy of the motion that you've got written here? They've written a motion for you. I move that the town terminate the lease agreement between the town of Scituate and Timothy Lopes of Go Green Supply, Inc. The lease should be terminated due to the repeated and continued violations of the terms of the lease by Go Green Supply. So you would get up, when I call Article 28, you'd come up, 29, pardon me, just sort of walk to that central microphone right down in front, the spotlights will be on you, every eye in the house will be...
No pressure. So
Jesus is sounding really good.
Yeah, just read it. And
Yeah.
if you forget it, I'll have it. You can have mine.
And Teresa,
Just read it.
if you want to, you can always walk the 3 or 4 doors down the street from your house to mine, and we can talk about it some more if you want. But all you need to do is just come up front, read that motion, or identify yourself. I'm Teresa Nielsen, blah, 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 Stockbridge Road, Mr. Moderator. And I'll say, Ms. Nielsen. And then you'll read, I move, and so forth. And then when you finish reading the motion, I'll say, is there a second? And somebody will go, second. And then I'll say, discussion. And then at that point, esteemed council, I'm guessing, will, what, unesteemed council?
Either way,
Will, it was just the look on your face.
I didn't know if I was
Are
able to
you,
speak at town.
are you a resident?
I'm not.
Okay, so what I usually do when it comes to the non-voters is, especially, people who are there in a professional capacity, like attorneys and engineers and consultants, I usually assume the consent of the meeting to allow the non-voter to speak unless there's an objection. And I'll say words to that effect. And then, so Teresa will identify you, you'll step up to the mic. I'll say, counsel who will be making the presentation on behalf of the petitioner is a non-voter. I will assume the consent of the meeting to allow him to speak unless there's an objection. There usually isn't. If there is, we'll take a vote, and people will vote to allow you to speak. And then you can make your presentation. The general rule is that presenters get 10 minutes to present. And I'll say this here, but I say it to everyone, so I'm not picking on you. People are always encouraged to take less than the allotted time. Now, so that's how that will work. Now, of course, there will be some legal discussion about the legality of this article. And the general rule, as I'm aware of it, and by the way, well, it's been suggested that there's a legal problem that town meeting cannot annul an ongoing contract that's already been entered into. There's just a variety of issues, and I can ask Madam Town Council to address those, and I will in a minute. But just so you know, notwithstanding the suggestion that there are legal issues with this, you go ahead and give the presentation and people can vote on it. If it passes, and I think Madam Council will confirm this, the executive branch of government, the Board of Selectmen, will be perfectly within its rights to thumb its nose at the vote because of separation of powers doctrines. But anyway, Madam Council.
I agree. I don't think that the town meeting has any authority to pass this article, and I agree that it can't bind the selectmen in case they go forward with it.
Mr. Bull, may I speak?
Oh, yeah,
Is
please.
it possible to put this folder up on the screens?
Yes, there is going to be a screen there.
I would like the town to see all these pictures that are taken from the drawing.
Teresa, any picture you want shown?
Have to get an electronic version.
I don't have the electronic ability to do that. All I have is a screen, so if you had those on a laptop, you could hook it in as like a PowerPoint thing, but I don't even know where we would get the...
Yeah, here's the thing. As the presenter, it's the presenter's obligation to get the media into a format that we can actually transmit. And you can show any picture you want.
I would like that.
Yeah, I saw who was behind it.
But clearly, the mechanics of that and the logistics of that are the responsibility of the presenting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just a laptop, as long as you have the cables.
I think we have the cables here, didn't we? Had that last year.
Yeah, it should
We
be all
had,
set.
who set that up? Was it, I can't remember, if it was Mr. Richter or, was it John Capalupo?
It was John,
Usually
because
pretty-
Bill Richter only gets involved when we're in the nice room.
Okay, so I'm gonna call John Capalupo and see if he has the cables and all. I think he does. I think
Should
he's
be
the
all.
one that did it. It's terrible. I don't even remember.
Should be a projector and the cables are ready to go.
Could I just ask town council, this has been kind of floating around.
Yeah,
for a
please,
while.
please.
It came up at the advisory board. I
Yeah.
saw on the minutes of the selectmen's meeting in March that they referred to it as an illegal article. I'm just, I'm trying to get a little more information on what the the legal problem actually is.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's in any way, shape, or form illegal. It doesn't violate any statute that I'm aware of. And even in discussing with the chairman of the advisory board, he indicated to me that his opinion was that they vested this authority in the selectmen by voting at town meeting to give them the ability to enter into contracts. It was just common sense. If town meeting vested that authority to the selectmen, town meeting itself must have that authority. And since town meeting never ratified or approved this particular lease in any way, shape, or form that I've seen, there's never been any vote, nobody's ever approved it. I'm just saying that only the selectmen then can terminate it. I don't see any legal basis for that. The town meeting can grant the authority to the selectmen. Clearly, town meeting has the authority to terminate a lease that they vested the authority in the selectmen to begin with, especially if it becomes clear to the citizens that the lease is being violated on multiple fronts.
Madam Town Council?
By statute, the selectmen have the authority to enter into contracts, and this is a contract they have entered into. If there is dissatisfaction with the contract, it would be possible to put an article that would be merely advisory or merely an opinion to be presented to the selectmen, so people suggest or would encourage the selectmen to terminate. But the contract is with the town acting for the selectmen, and it's within their purview. And it's either 40 or 41. Do you remember, Jim? The authority of selectmen to enter into contracts?
I think it's either Chapter 40, Section 1. 3 or 5.
I was wondering what the town's position on this was going to be. I would have liked to know. I didn't know got far enough to know if the town is going to speak on this, or what they would recommend.
I mean, it's not the purview of town meeting to cancel a contract that the Board of Selectmen has entered into. The proper venue for a complaint about a vendor that is under contract with the Board of Selectmen is with the Board of Selectmen.
I agree. My question really was much more procedural than that. This is not the first time that a petition has been put on a warrant, in my opinion, that the town cannot lawfully act upon. And in my experience, usually someone from the town will make a motion either to have no action taken on it, so that people know that they're not just voting in favor or against, and then it gives people an opportunity to say why we don't want to vote or can't vote. That's just my opinion, that's why I was asking.
Can I throw out just sort of I don't vote on any of these, so I'll just throw out what I hope is a disinterested opinion. First of all, this will be voted on. There is case law that, and it's Valdario versus Winchester, 64 Mass Appeals Court, 1106, 2005, I think, rescript opinion from the Mass Appeals Court that deals with placing articles on warrants. And in that rescript opinion, the appeals court took the position that the Board of Selectmen could exclude from a warrant an article which they felt was illegal. And if you look at the opinion, it's kind of interesting. There's one footnote in it. I forget which number footnote it is, but there's probably maybe a 300 or 400 word summary on the reasons why a Board of Selectmen could do that if it wanted to. That being said, I think it was a bad decision. I would never advise a Board of Selectmen to exercise the role of judge and exclude lawfully petitioned articles. And the fact that it's a rescript opinion means that, well, as you know, and certainly as Madam Town Council knows, that the appeals court didn't feel confident enough in its opinion to say, hey, look, it's an opinion we can all rely on. All right. So just extending from that case law, I know there had been some suggestion made by, I don't remember who, that maybe I would rule it out of order under my authority under Chapter 39, Section 15 as an illegal act. I won't do that because people went to the trouble of petitioning to get it on, it'll be voted on. And if it passes, and if the Board of Selectmen decide that it's not binding on them, they will, and presumably that's what they would do, because that's Town Council's advice, then they will do nothing under that article. And then at that point, your remedy is to, I suppose, some sort of declaratory judgment action or something like that.
Written affidavits or something.
Yeah.
We have sent a letter to Mr. Boudreau and the rest of the selectmen on this issue, right, leading up to the town meeting, just so that we're also addressing it directly.
Yeah.
Got any type of response from anybody.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, it's my opinion, and my opinion won't affect your ability to present the article, for it to be fully heard, that the Board of Selectmen would be within their rights to not honor a favorable vote by town meeting. Now, I'm probably the last person in the world who will ever say that about anything, because I believe if town meeting votes something, it shall be done, except when it's illegal. And your question was, why is it that town meeting, having given the power to contract, it can't take it away? And that's a legitimate question. But think of it this way. You are the manager of a baseball team, and you've decided to put Pedro Martinez on the mound to pitch to whoever, Babe Ruth. And so Pedro's up there, he winds up, he throws the pitch, it hits the catcher's mitt, the pitch has been thrown. The manager commissioned Pedro to go out and throw that pitch, it's been thrown and it's been caught. The manager can't come out of the dugout once the ball's in flight. And in this case, the ball was in flight. The Board of Selectmen acted pursuant to the authority given to them to contract. The contract has been signed, it's in operation, and at this point, the issue is not one of whether they have the authority to enter into a contract. They did. It's an issue of whether the party with whom they've contracted is living up to the terms. And sincerely, I think this is probably more of a specific performance issue under the terms of the contract rather than attempting to rescind a contract that's already been executed. But having expressed that opinion, your article will go forward, debate will be full. Teresa, you'll get to make your presentation. If you get the pictures in a form that is compatible with the equipment that the town has, you can put up any picture you want. The floor will be yours. So on that article, we'll have Ms. Nielsen will make the motion. Please say hi to Paul for me.
I will.
Then from the Board of Selectmen, Tony Vignani. Who have we got from advisory?
I didn't have anybody on the list. The last two articles I didn't see.
Player to be named later.
To be announced.
Yeah, to be announced. Yeah, Pedro will be coming in for that one. So we'll just put a question mark there. And anything else to be said on Article 29? You guys all set? And seriously, if you, my invitation stands, or you just want to amble down the street, you know where to find me.
You would kind of make the declarative statement that the motion is in order, you're just not going to address it.
I'm not going to address it unless somebody raises it with me. Yeah, you know, the stuff we talk about here, it's to, well, and you know this, it's to thrash the issues out in advance. If somebody wants to ask about it then, well, sure. But otherwise, like, okay, you.
Well, I'm glad I was here to hear your rationale, but if I was on the floor, I'd probably ask.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been here.
I'll answer questions when asked them. Okay, Article 30. But you don't want to stick around for the rest? Yeah. Take care.
If I'd known, I would have brought a cake.
Wow.
We would have had some.
Yeah.
I might have even changed my mind.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Is it N-E-I-L-S-O-N?
N-I-N-I-E-L-S. E-N, I believe.
Ian.
Yeah. Okay, Article 30, petition, temporary deferral of building. Who's our petitioner?
John Bemke.
Hi, John.
John, it's B-O-E-M-K-E?
E-H-M-K-E. So that no one has a chance of saying that if they don't heard it.
To me, it seems perfectly logical, but so I think we've got a lot to talk about on this one, unfortunately. Well, first let's talk about what the article does. The motion that I have here says, I move that whereas the town of Scituate has a limited water supply, whereas the water supply was clearly demonstrated to be not adequate to meet town demand during the drought of 2016, whereas there is no currently well-defined method for determining whether the town has enough water to support additional development of residential projects, the Board of Selectmen and all town departments, committees, and other bodies are hereby instructed to temporarily defer approval of any new construction in the town of Scituate, A, intended for multi-tenant occupancy, B, intended for single-family occupancy where the developer or builder of said property is requesting permission to build more than one residence, unless otherwise required by state or federal law. This temporary deferral is to remain in effect until the town can establish a well-defined method to demonstrate that sufficient water supplies are in production to support all additional residents expected to occupy properties pending approval. This well-defined method shall include, I'll omit reading that, but it sets out standards for defining whether or not that can be met. And then the Town of Scituate Water Resource Committee must agree that these conditions have been met before the temporary deferral can be removed. So, is that the motion you're going forward with?
Well, I'm not aware that I have any choice but to go with that motion, sir.
I ask only because I had heard that there may be a motion to, well, if I can simplify it, the bylaw as written really does two things. During the period in which things are being evaluated, it would call a halt to permitting for residential properties other than one family, okay? And there is an indefinite time period, or if I can put it differently, no time period is expressed, but there is a closure mechanism. Is that
Yes.
kind of accurate? Okay. So that's what we're going to run with.
Well, I've been told that that presents legal issues, third person from town council through Jim.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Madam Town Council.
You said you felt tied to this motion, and I was just curious as to what was an alternative motion you would have in your mind when you said that.
Well, I would, since I did not understand the legal issues when I drafted the article, I would be very interested in modifying the article to address those issues while still attempting to retain the initial intent of the article.
Well, tell you what, let's have a discussion about that to see what could or could not be done. And I'll tell you what I've heard and how I might rule on what I've heard. And then I'll ask Madam Town Council to comment on my observations so that if I'm off base, I can be corrected. And some of you may have wondered why I brought this. This is called my new pet, right? This is called a Russian doll.
What's that, what they called?
Mamushka.
Mamushka, not babushka.
No, babushka is a grandmother.
Right, mamushka.
Yeah, пожалуйста.
There's a bunch of little tiny ones in there?
Yes, there are. So, let's just have a little discussion about the theory of scope of the article. Now, when an article is printed in the warrant, that's the notice that's given to the public of what will happen at town meeting. Now, town meeting can do things that depart from what's written in the warrant as long as those departures, which are known as amending motions, are within what's called the four corners of the article. So your article, as you've drafted it, let's analogize it to this Russian doll. This Russian doll that you've made so lovingly, and look at those big nice rows on the front and everything, calls for a ban on residential construction, multifamily, with the exception of single-family residences, for an indefinite length of time. Or, to put it slightly differently, there is no set time by which this moratorium would expire. So, have I got that right? Okay, so that is this. Now, if you wish to make a motion to change this motion that we had in front of us right now, it would have to be within the four corners of the article, or if you think about it a little bit differently, that motion would have to fit inside this bigger doll. This bigger doll consists of the residential ban, except for single family, in an indefinite time period. So now, let's suppose you wanted to bring a motion to amend your article or your motion to include commercial construction. Could you do that? Is commercial construction part of this doll? No. John's shaking his head. So, if such a motion were presented, I would have to rule it out of order because, in fact, you'd be restricting more activities than were encompassed in the original article. And people would make the argument, probably builders, or people in the trades or property owners, that their rights were being deprived because they didn't have notice of this activity. And in fact, if you go take a look at some of the case law out there, there are all kinds of litigation all over the country from builders, individual property owners, and so forth that deal with deprivation of rights. So that's why it's very important when we adopt any kind of moratorium that we're very careful to keep within our original boundaries. So were you to offer an amendment to include commercial construction, I would rule it out of order as being beyond the scope, just for the reason that that would be a bigger doll. You know, we could do a smaller one. So for example, you know, if you were, and you're probably not going to do this, but if you were to amend it by, you know, getting rid of multi-tenant occupancy, you know, so it was less restrictive than what you have here, that would probably be within the article, but I suspect you wouldn't want to do that because that would defeat the purpose of what you're trying to do. Okay. So there's that. The other issue that I had possible, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
So does the rest of that thought say that if we remove the exemption for single family, that it might be ruled out of order?
Well, right now you are exempting single family. And if you removed the exemption for single family, you'd be making the proposal more restrictive than what has been noticed to the public in the warrant article. That would be a bigger doll.
That's completely different.
Yeah, no, and no, you have the logic down. So you can make what you have less restrictive if you want. I suspect that's probably not what you would want to do, but you can't make it more restrictive. Now, the other possible amendment that I had heard about was actually putting a hard deadline for the moratorium, 1 year, 2 years. You know, the moratoria that I've been involved in litigating and drafting usually have a hard deadline. Now, how would I rule on that? I would allow that amendment, and here's why. Right now, this article, as written, doesn't have a deadline. So, hypothetically, this moratorium could last from the day it was adopted till the end of time. So, for example, if you chose, and I'm just using this as an example, a one-year deadline, well, 1 year is less restrictive than for all time, so that's, yeah, actually, that's probably somewhere, you know, I don't know. Does it get smaller than that? Yeah, it does. It just keeps, oh, there we go. You know, that's probably way down in here. So, yeah, that'd be no problem. So, I don't know if that helps at all in terms of amendments that you're thinking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, if I can finish the thought, putting in a time deadline does not relieve the article of the other issue that is discriminatory against other classes of property.
Oh, yeah, there are other issues that we're going to get to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No.
I was so enthralled with the doll, I lost my
And I'm not putting that back together.
Here.
Sorry.
Jim, you play over here.
I'm not playing. That's all
Yay. Can I have one of these for the selectmen's meetings?
Really?
Here.
Right here, Jeff.
And this is being filmed? This is awesome.
So,
My finger caught.
John, I've really thought long and hard about your article. I mean, number one, and again, I guess I'm committing the error of expressing a personal opinion because I worry about our water supply, but also because in 1986, when I was chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I stood in front of town meeting and made a motion for a moratorium on construction until we got our water supply in order. Sounds familiar, huh?
I voted for it.
And I was quite angered at my dear friend, and I do mean dear friend, Peter Levitt, who was the moderator. So believe me, the current selectman might not understand this, but I understand selectman anger at moderators. I've lived it. But the moderator had considerable issues about the legality of what I was trying to do. And then the ultimate dagger in the heart or knife in the back, however you want to describe it, was when town council got up and said it was illegal. Wow. I mean, it was not happy. But eventually, at the fall town meeting in 1986, we bought Article 17, which now, 33 years later, we're rehabilitating, and we did master plan studies, and we did a whole bunch of stuff to try to secure our water supply. So, yeah, I've thought long and hard about it because, you know, been there. But here are some of the issues that we're going to discuss. I see that we have a quantum of vote as a majority being suggested. And so at this point, I have to ask, is this a zoning bylaw or is this a general bylaw? And the reason I ask that question, well, there are two reasons. Reason number one is because this does regulate the use of land, which doesn't automatically mean it's a zoning bylaw, but it's suggestive. And there are different procedural requirements that apply to the adoption of general bylaws than there are to zoning bylaws. Zoning bylaws are much more procedure intensive. As you're nodding your head, and I can see you know that. You need the planning board hearing, planning board report. There's a higher quantum of vote, a 2/3 rather than a majority. So there's a lot there. So what have we got? Well, I have to ask John first. That's all right. It's not an easy thing. I know. Madam Town Council?
I think my initial reaction was, this should be a zoning article, but it's not drafted as a zoning article. So I think it should be a zoning article. It reads like a zoning article, but I don't think it's been properly drafted as a zoning article. And if I don't know if it's not presented as a zoning article.
Yes.
So the public is thinking, this isn't zoning, so we don't, it's only a majority. I think people it could be influenced differently if they thought it was a 2/3 requirement versus a majority requirement. It's like, I think if there was a limit, people might think differently about whether they care about the article or not, because one level added or subtracted from what they think they're already protected from, because it will get shut down on legal grounds. That being said, I don't know that we have any ability, if it doesn't say zoning, to put the word in.
Well, let's think for a minute whether it has to be a zoning bylaw, because not that I would cut off discussion on this. That's not my intention or my role. If town meeting wants to debate this in full and wants to adopt it by whatever quantum of vote it wants, there it is. It's just, this really goes to the question of what is this if it passes? And I think that's an important question, because this is an important subject, and clearly you and the other organizers behind this have put in a lot of time. And I think we have to honor that effort. There's a bunch of case law out there that stands for the proposition that a water-related moratorium should be treated as a zoning bylaw if it is not an emergency situation. So let me ask this question. Have the water commissioners of the town of Scituate, versus the Board of Selectmen, declared an emergency? I understand the water ban, but that's because we're pulling the water straight out of the wells right now while the treatment facility is being fixed. So is there an actual declaration of emergency in place?
Not that I'm aware of. Kevin, is there?
Not a declaration of emergency. It was a declaration just for the rebuilding of the water treatment plant itself. That wasn't...
Wasn't a supply emergency.
It wasn't a supply emergency.
Here's the reason why I ask, because from what I've seen, the courts are more willing to give you deference if you're dealing with an emergency situation rather than something that can be dealt with the proper application of due process and studies and so forth. So,
Can I just ask you a question about
yeah.
response on
Oh,
that?
please.
How can you be in a water ban if you haven't declared some kind of emergency?
Well, that's a fair question. I don't have the answer.
Are we in a water ban or are we in a water restriction? Is there a difference? Restriction, right?
But still, it's a declaration of restriction, right?
If it's not an emergency.
Right, and they're often temporary too, depending on season and usage, as opposed to the supply itself being inadequate as a whole. And when you think of an emergency for a water situation, because there's no supply, the supply is threatened or the supply has been compromised, and so you just have to, because of the emergency nature of it.
Yeah.
A ban is more of a control mechanism to prevent emergencies.
I see. Yeah, when I think of a water emergency, and, set aside the issue, I just wave it away like it was nothing. I know we all hate the water when it turns brown. I certainly have it too. But I know the emergencies I'm familiar with are like the situation in Johannesburg, where I think they were days away from having no water. Maybe that's an extreme example.
I think the water did actually run out.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Here's why I ask. It's because the courts are more generous in dealing with emergency situations. And so in order for something like this to become truly enforceable, and that's what I'm going towards, if this were adopted, could we get a court to enforce it? Well, that'll be up to the guy or gal in the black robe, not me, not town meeting. What the judge is probably going to look to is whether there's evidence that there is an emergency, and Exhibit A would be, declaration by the water commissioners of an emergency. That's the only reason I ask. So, all right.
Not being a zoning article, who enforces at the local level? I go in, I want a building permit to build 3 homes on a common driveway. Building commissioner says, no, there's a general bylaw that says you can't do that. Well, who do I appeal to? ZBA can't hear that.
See, I don't even know that this is a bylaw.
That'd be a zoning bylaw that he'd be enforcing.
Yeah.
In order to be enforced at the local level and appealed at the local level, it would have to be a zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
My only recourse then would be to go to Superior Court
Yeah.
if it's a general bylaw. But I don't know.
This-
What kind of bylaw this is a motion that doesn't.
This doesn't even reference bylaw.
Right,
And
it
so,
doesn't call for a bylaw.
no, and then here's the issue, here's another issue. And John, I'm sorry.
So just on that thought.
Yeah.
Next issue, so if it's not a bylaw, and it's the vote of the town to take an action,
Yeah.
is that just not possible? Like, is there no such thing as the vote of the town to take an action that's not a bylaw?
Yes, well, for example, on Teresa's article, where if town meeting passes it, Teresa's asking town meeting to cancel a contract that the town has already entered into. I will allow that vote to go forward. If it passes, the real question is not whether it will pass town meeting. The question is, if it does pass town meeting, can it be implemented? And I think that actually brings me to the next point that I had, where the article says, the Board of Selectmen and all town departments and committees and other bodies are hereby instructed to temporarily defer approval. We actually need to have a mechanism that does that, and usually that kind of mechanism is a zoning bylaw, which governs the activities of the land use boards and to some extent the building department. I haven't even thought about the water side of it. I suppose the water commissioners, i.e. Board of Selectmen, have water connection regulations, but though I'm trying to remember back to my days, they have a set of water connection regulations, don't they? Yeah. But they're the ones who are charged with drafting and adopting the regulations there. I'm talking like Karen isn't here. Sorry. So, Cindy, can town meeting jump into the water commissioner's jurisdiction and amend their regulation? I know I'm hitting you with this question out of the blue.
I would say no. My gut reaction is if this were to be passed and the selectmen or the town administrator asked me if they had to pay attention to it and if they had to enforce it, I would tell them I don't think they do.
Yeah, that's my fear.
Don't like having to say that, but it's not the first time a petition article has been placed on with all the best of intentions and all the best, perhaps even goals that should be addressed, but in a format that can't be enforced and that is better off not dealt with at the town meeting until people can discuss the issue and put it in a format that actually has hope of doing what you want if it passes. That's just my view of it.
Yeah.
So this is considered non-binding then, is what you're saying? If it
I
doesn't go
would
anywhere?
Yeah.
not tell the selectman or the town administrator or the zoning enforcement officer that they would have to enforce it if they asked me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my fear. I mean, not my fear that you will say that, but it's my expectation that you will say that. It's my fear that it's not going to get you where we want you to get. Okay. Look, there will be a full discussion. There will be a full discussion on this. I'm not going to rule this out of order, as has been suggested that I might do. No. You know, I've probably told this story already, so tough luck you'll hear it again. You know, before the American Revolution, there were lots of town meeting votes talking about how we should become an independent country and representation, no representation, but we had taxation. And let's face it, those votes were important in spurring the American Revolution and giving us the liberties that we have today. Well, guess what? At the time those votes took place, they were treasonous. Every person at the meeting probably could have been taken out and hung. So, no, Jim, I heard that. I think Mr. Hunt has volunteered to test the limb for us. So, look, you're going to make a motion. There's going to be a full discussion. I expect Cindy, or Madam Town Council, pardon me, you know, you've heard what she's going to say. If you want to make a motion to time limit it, that will be perfectly in order. We are where we are, I think. And I think no matter what, well, I don't know. I'm pretty good at picking horses. My guess is it will pass. But
so the flip side is, and I'm glad I'm hearing this today and not at town meeting, is that I thought there were two issues that needed to be addressed and kind of thought they could be. And so I told people that.
yeah.
And so there were a lot of people who were like getting babysitters for the show.
Well,
And I don't want them to.
well, I'd encourage them to anyway, because it's a.
I mean, this is going to be a long meeting. I'm going to ask on the meeting. It could be Tuesday. They could show up and spend Monday night there.
You could move it forward.
Move it to the fall.
That is a legitimate motion. The other thing you could do.
To have it considered earlier in the agenda, is that
You can make a motion to advance consideration of an article. That's what the motion would be called. I move to advance consideration of Article 30. And I'll just have to double check the quantum of vote. I think it might be 2/3, but I will figure it out, and if you give me your email, I'll email you and let you know what the quantum of vote is. The other thing you can do, and it's actually what I ended up doing all those years ago, was bringing back our water package to the fall town meeting. And we got a lot of stuff through that we weren't getting through in the spring, only because, well, forgive the bad pun, but people needed to get their feet wet. So I think we actually, our vote to acquire, our motion to acquire well 17 was actually shot down in the spring town meeting, but it was approved at the fall town meeting. So if you wanted to go the route of making your motion getting up, or making a motion and saying, I move to indefinitely postpone, you could even say till the fall town meeting. Of course, you'd still have to go through the process of getting it on. And then offer an explanation. in which you could say, point out that obviously this is a very important issue, but that you wanted to bring it back at a point where some of the newly discovered issues had been discussed. I mean, honestly, what I would do, hey, my term's up in 6 weeks, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it in 6.5 weeks.
You won't be the moderator.
Yeah, I won't be the moderator. The place I would probably start would be with the Attorney General and the Attorney General's bank of opinions on rulings on moratorium. But as I say, if that's the way you wanted to go, talk to you in 6.5.
To say that his article couldn't lay some groundwork.
No, it absolutely could. It can lay groundwork either by a full discussion of it or by a motion to indefinitely postpone, or a motion to, we would call it a motion to further study until the fall town meeting, understanding that it would actually have to be put back on the warrant again. It doesn't automatically slide over. You make a presentation at this point as to the necessity of it. I am sure people are going to want to know why you're doing it and are going to express their opinions as to the importance of it being done. So you're laying the groundwork without actually committing to the language as it is today. I just leave that as a suggestion.
Can it be tabled, or that?
That would be in the family of similar motions. I would go with motion to further study at the fall town meeting, only because, while not technically binding, it presents the idea of hope and aspiration that it's going to be taken up. That's whatever you want to do. You'll have a discussion on whatever motion you bring forward.
Just personally, I would speak against indefinite postponement because that kills it. And I would vigorously participate in the discussion.
Whatever folks want to do with it.
But either way, it ends up dying, it has to be brought back, but you would definitely postpone it.
Can you not take it off the table at the subsequent meeting?
No.
What do you,
No.
comment that, Jim, even if you could, what you're taking off the table is not proper.
Yeah,
No. And yeah.
well, yeah, I would.
But I don't know if that even kicks in.
So no matter what we do, it dies at the town meeting. And
Yeah,
then
the
you
second
have
I
to
drop the
resurrect
gavel
it
at the end,
with a new article for the fall.
everything is gone.
But is there any bias against presenting the same article at a subsequent town meeting?
No.
Zoning articles, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but this isn't,
But this isn't a zoning article, it's being presented, number one.
not yet.
Number two, the case would be made, and I wouldn't make it, but the case would be made that the article that you would be bringing in the fall would be substantially different from the article that you are presenting in the spring.
Otherwise, why do it? Right?
Yeah.
And if it's substantially different, then that, even on a zoning article, that prohibition goes away.
Well, and let me say this as presiding officer of the legislative branch, which is different from being Speaker of the House. Being Speaker of the House, you're chairman of a political party, and usually lobbying for your party. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm the presiding officer. I'm more like the Speaker in Parliament. Order, order. I don't get the nice wig and robe, but yeah.
That's how the House of Lords.
I'd bring my doll. It certainly would invite comment, wouldn't it? But as presiding officer of the legislative branch of government, I address this to our friends in the executive branch, Selectman Canfield and Town Administrator Boudreau. I'd strongly suggest that you find some money in your budget and get a consultant who could assist the petitioners and the Water Study Committee in reviewing a potential moratorium that would be defensible and would have all the predicate facts recited so that if it got in front of the court, it would withstand challenge. Take your budget and shake it and see if anything falls out. Nothing fell out of that, but separation of powers, you guys can do what you want.
So to do it, I know everyone's being very patient. Thank you.
No, this is important stuff. Go ahead, John.
So if we voted, sorry.
And I know Kevin wants to weigh in. Go ahead, John.
The only thing I was going to bring up, and this is just kind of out in the open, if this stirs debate and it is a big discussion, will this spur more building for people knowing that this is possibly coming in the fall and put a big push in the summer if that's up? That's the only thing I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah, but Kevin, that's an interesting thought, but a lot of this building is financing contingent, and, you can squeeze the eagle as hard as you want, whether it lays an egg,
Yep.
I don't know.
Just one concern on my part.
Can I-
Don't forget Pulte Homes and their 500-unit subdivision, which was frivolous on the face of it, but
Yeah.
it stayed the zoning change.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If that's allowed?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Just for my own personal knowledge. So if Mr. Bemke comes back in the fall to the special town meeting, he does a new article, he has to determine though what this is going to be, whether it's a zoning change, correct?
Yep.
Get us enough, and the signatures are different for a special town meeting, you need more. But,
He'd get them
and
easy.
if it's voted on and passed as a zoning bylaw, amendment to the zoning bylaws, and I submit its approval to the Attorney General, they have 90 days more to respond
True.
to see if they approve it. It has to go through the Attorney General's approval.
Yeah.
So that.
But it's going to be retroactive back to the planning board
Correct.
hearing date, so.
Correct. So I'm just making sure that he knows going forward to be in touch with the zoning board and planning and all that.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So if we vote on it as it's written, which has all these potential issues, which I hear them being described as illegal, but they sound, and I'm not a lawyer, to me more like, not that you can get arrested for them, but that you can't make them happen.
Correct.
That's accurate.
If you get sued, you're likely to lose when you get sued.
Yeah, lawyers love this. Well, Cindy, maybe you don't love it, but there's whenever you come across a law and you're trying to figure out whether it can be applied, there's a concept known as directory, and then there's a concept known as mandatory. Directory is like when you've raided the Twinkie box in your mom's kitchen, and she says, "Don't do that." Well, guess what? The Twinkies are gone. Whereas mandatory is, oh, you ate the Twinkies, off comes the belt and whack. So if we adopted this as it is, Madam Town Council or somebody would be advising the Board of, and I don't presume to speak for it, would be advising the Board of Selectmen and all the other departments that while it appears mandatory, or direct, well, it appears mandatory, it's actually directory, and you don't have to do directory. Did I say that right?
I think that's accurate.
Okay.
So if, in the goodness of their hearts, those Board of Selectmen chose to say, wow, the townspeople want us to do this, could they do it?
Only if they quintuple the legal budget.
Because I'd be sitting there, if I can,
Oh, please.
opening my mouth again, telling them they could be sued, and they will be in court, and it will not be easy, and we'll be spending all this money.
Because we don't have an emergency.
Because I don't think that if they enforced it, I think somebody would challenge it, and I do not think it would be upheld. But
And
that's
I agree
just
with
my
that.
little opinion, and that's what
Yeah.
I've been telling you.
Yeah, and I believe the town council's right.
If you separated the two issues, the time limit versus the discriminatory issue, do you think that's equally likely to fail on the discriminatory issue if the time issue is resolved? The time one is pretty clearly cut. Thank you for sharing your case references, and I read that. That one's pretty well established. If you don't have
Yeah.
time limit, you're done.
Yeah.
The discriminatory thing, I didn't see anything about that. I'm sure it's out there, right?
Yeah, there are cases on it.
So let me tell you what I would suggest the argument is.
Yeah.
Because it's not to be discriminatory, of course. That's
Go on.
not the purpose of doing it. But it would be to say, what we're trying to do here is to accurately estimate the amount of water that we have so that we can plan accordingly and responsibly for the water that we have.
Hmm.
And in the skill set of planners, and I'm sure you could bring expert consultants in to say what their margin for error is of planning water capacity into future days. Some small number of houses is well within the margin for error. You can't plan for that. But 500 residents in the town of 18,000 or 2,000 residents in the town of 18,000 is well within the margin for what you can plan for. And so therefore it's not discriminatory, it's certainly not intended to be, nor is it, because you can't plan for onesie-twosies, but you can plan for thousands.
In the moratoria that I've been involved in drafting and defending, a lot of that sort of analysis is done before you actually adopt the moratorium, because what is often the case is that the judge will be looking for some, I'll call it a legislative record that leads up to the restriction that allows the judge to be assured that the remedy wasn't just plucked from thin air, but that there was actual support in the legislative record for what it is that you've done. So.
You can just make up an answer because it fits.
Precisely. Because, yeah.
But there is, that is equally, like, I saw the stuff about the time limit,
yeah.
Like you're just going to fail.
Yeah. Well, but remember I said that was probably the one thing that you could fix.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
if we go ahead with that and we go ahead and, I'm just really worried about all these people.
The flip side of this is going to be
the people who are going out on a limb to come and vote.
Yeah.
Pushing hard to do this. Like, it just doesn't seem fair. It's
yeah.
just a waste of time. I want to go back out on Facebook and say, guys, you're wasting time.
None of this is a waste of time.
But
I remember back in my moratorium, I felt like I'd wasted my time for a couple days until I got real angry, and then we sat down and figured what we were going to do in October, and we did it. I think and I was joking with Jim, I think at one point I came pretty close to taking my shoe off and banging it on the podium like Khrushchev. I was angry.
Cindy.
I'm sorry, Cindy.
That's okay. I was just going to say, it's your petition, and ultimately you get to move your motion. And if you come to the conclusion that you're likely to, under whatever language we decide makes the most sense, kick this off of this town meeting to a time in the future, it would be within your ability to inform people that that's what you're going to do, so they can choose not to come if they don't want to. If your concern is they would be making a special effort to come for this one article. I have seen that happen where you know in advance, petitioners know that, okay, we've done something, there's some fatal flaw, we know it's not going to be able to be passed the way we want it and enforced, we're going to take it off of this agenda and we'll come back in the future, and then, you know, half the people who would have otherwise come decide, okay, now I don't have to worry and I don't come. So I'm just saying that is also, you know, practical consideration.
John, if I may, I brought along a book written by my good friend and former law partner, Mark Burbowski, who's a very eminent land use attorney and now retired New England School of Law professor. And Mark writes in his tome, an interim zoning provision is usually enacted to halt or slow growth while the municipality studies its consequences. The typical device is the moratorium. In Calora versus Town of Arlington, the municipality's 2-year moratorium on construction of apartment buildings in certain districts was upheld by the Supreme Judicial Court. It ruled that the measure was properly characterized as a zoning bylaw and that it did not offend substantive due process analysis. We believe that the objectives of an interim provision such as the one here, and quoting from the court, are consistent with the purposes of zoning. Interim zoning can be considered a salutary device in the process of plotting a comprehensive zoning plan to be employed to prevent disruption of the ultimate plan itself. the one word that came through over and over and over again right there, zoning.
So if this were a zoning bylaw, then any permitting process currently underway would not be affected. If it's not a zoning bylaw, what happens to the permitting processes currently in effect? We have significant 40Bs underway. We have probably, according to Bob Vogel, in excess of 300 permit applications on the table.
Jim, it's an open question.
Yeah.
Because there isn't, other than saying this proposed bylaw is saying, or, pardon me, I can't say proposed bylaw, other than this article saying that the Board of Selectmen and all town departments and committees and other bodies are hereby instructed. It's an instruction.
That's a,
Generally, if you're in the door, you're in the door.
Yeah.
And you can't change the rules after you've already filed.
but those are zoning rules.
It's not just zoning rules though, but that's the example. If I know a zoning change is coming, I come rushing in and put my half-ass subdivision on the table because it's in.
Right. That's what Pulte Owens did for the proving ground.
Just
Go
got
ahead.
forwarded them last week.
Everybody does.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Don't get.
That's from my net tower.
Go ahead, Cindy.
All I was gonna say is regardless of whether it's properly zoning, not zoning, or what you call it, or whether I can assure you, in my experience, that anyone who's in the pipeline will challenge if it is enforced against them, and the town will be embroiled in litigation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That was the point I was going for.
Mr. Moderator, I apologize.
Thank you for coming. I know you had some stuff. I appreciate your coming.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry to have to leave.
Well, John, I think you've got some thinking to do.
Thank you all.
But I do want to say, I do want to commend you for what you're trying to do and the effort of all the volunteers. And it's just this kind of exciting proposal that makes town meeting worthwhile. And I hope that nothing that I've said would in any way suggest that I'm not thrilled about what you're trying to do. So
his next step is to come up with a motion.
we'll figure out what you want to do. And
So just procedurally, if I do want to amend, how does that?
well, let's just take the
Let's just say.
the year thing, the duration. What I would do is, rather than going through some elaborate process of making a motion and then coming up with an amendment to it, just make your main motion the way you want it to be. I move as printed in the warrant, except that there shall be a one-year duration of commencing on the date of approval, or commencing on its effective date. I'd put it that way because the AG, well, no, I don't even think this has to go to the
You need
AG.
to amend in here.
When I called them, they said they were not going to.
No, they're right, they're not going to look at it.
No, doesn't.
Doesn't say zoning, it's not a general bylaw.
Right.
It's,
It's just a question of what's going to happen if people.
I think it's I think it's a good intention. I think that's what it is.
You can only sue if it's enforced, and it can't be enforced, so
Yeah.
the chances of litigation.
Well, no, someone will sue you because we might not enforce it now, but we might come back and enforce it later. So someone's going to sue to say, you can't hold this sort of Damocles over my head in the future, they get it thrown out.
And hey, look, there's another way to skin this cat. My apologies to cat lovers.
I was going to say.
But it's funny, nobody ever says there's another way to skin this dog.
Heaven forbid.
Well, no, I was going to make that joke. Yeah, I'll stop right here. Although my recent trip to Bangkok comes to mind.
What I was thinking of.
Oh, my word.
Sleeping dogs.
Oh, not just the sleeping dogs, there were these vendors selling dogs on a stick.
Oh, come on.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's right, this is being taped.
Anyways.
Anyway, another thing to look at are the water commissioner's water connection bylaws, or not bylaws, regulations. there's a thing known as legislation, which this is, town meeting's a legislature. People don't get that, but it is. But there's also another form of legislation called administrative legislation. And so anytime that you have a board that has an ability to adopt regulations, like the Board of Health, the Water Commissioners, i.e. the Board of Selectmen, the Sewer Commissioners, i.e. the Board of Selectmen, they have powers to adopt regulations. So, don't rule out the possibility that you may be able to come up with some appropriate, defensible regulations that could address some of this. And that's all I'll say. So, that was the last article.
Mr. Martin?
Ma'am.
Much earlier.
Sorry.
Kathy mentioned that she didn't have the advisory committee speakers.
Oh, yes, those last two.
Because the Ellis article, because of the bulk of it, it was split up.
Ah.
So I just want to make sure in your notes that you have the 25, 26, and 27, which is the three Ellis articles, to Mike Westbrook for the advisory committee. And then,
Oh, I have, on all three of those Ellis ones?
yeah, because it's,
Oh, I have Mike on 25,
then it should be 26 and 27.
Jamie on 26, and Jamie on 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Jamie's going to be on the first two of the petition articles.
Okay.
So to extend the Humrock Village residential overlay, and then the buildings.
Where am I?
All right, so,
Humrock, let's go back.
So Mike is 25, Mike is 26, Mike is 27.
and then on 28, I have Jerry Kelly.
Mike is
28 is
25.
Jamie, 29 is Jamie, and then Jerry is 30.
Okay, so,
Jerry's the temporary deferral appointment.
okay, so Jamie is 28,
Not Jerry, okay, Jamie.
Jamie is 29, and Jerry is 30. Great,
And Mike was 25, 26, and 27?
right.
All right.
There we go.
Oh.
We have Karen.
Canfield.
Well, see you Monday.
All right, so he knows to bring his new motion to us at the town meeting.
Oh, yeah, John, if you come up with any kind of new motion, if you could, as soon as you're able to, please give it to Kathy so that we can get it in my book.
If you could email it to me, and then I can get it in the book.
Yeah, my
print them
motion's
out.